So, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast with me, the guy no one likes, the German with the lovely accent and the beer sitting here, alcohol-free though. And on the other end, it is the small midget from the small island with a beard though. It is Steve Hall.
You know, some people say that I look like, what's his name? Tyrion Lannister?
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah, the dwarf.
Yeah.
Apparently I look
because
like
of the face or what? I don't know.
I'm assuming the face because otherwise they haven't seen my body.
That's true.
I'm a little bit bigger.
By the way, I said small midget. Can you even say that? It's like a good positive or so.
Yeah, small midget. It's like, well, midgets are small. So
yeah,
and smaller than.
Yeah, maybe there's they even differentiate between like, okay,
a larger midget.
This is okay. We are midgets, but we have to differentiate between small midgets, medium-sized midgets, and what's a medium-sized midget anyway? I mean,
this is like, what's the difference between a midget and a dwarf? I'm sure there is like height differences, and what height do you then become a dwarf? Do you have to be under like 4 foot or something? I don't know.
I have no idea. Never been in the dwarf industry, so I have no idea how the rules are applied there. Don't know. Sorry to bring that up, though.
And I have a horrible feeling we are in that day and age where even using such terms, I think if you use them inappropriately, you could end up causing offense. So I apologize if I did end up, or either of us did end up causing offense, because we are very ignorant to any of that.
Yeah. The problem is that I'm watching so many videos about SJWs that my entire YouTube feed is just like recommending me all the time, like videos of SJWs, and that is just like I'm being biased based on my own views, right? So I'm watching these videos. I don't want to anymore because it just ends up in that vicious cycle that I believe or start to believe that the entire world is full of SJWs, which is not the case. Mostly it's just Hollywood, but I mean, yeah.
This is what happens just in social media in general, because you find yourself in that little bubble in your niche, because of the way the algorithm works. It just feeds you what you want, and you get further and further into your own little hole, and then you realize, shit, there's a whole new world out there, things going on I didn't even realize. So anyway, how are you doing, Pascal? We're both wrecked.
Yeah, totally wrecked. I mean, today is Thursday. I had my last lower body session of week number 5, so the extended mesocycle, and I had to stop the session in the midst of the session because I was just too tired. Like overall, I went into the session and was already feeling like, I don't know, should I take a rest day or not, just to make the session productive? And probably I should have done that. So anyway, I went in there though. Went for the training session. The first sets of the RDLs felt fantastic, and then all of a sudden I had a huge drop in performance, and I ended up that I couldn't even perform a single repetition anymore, right? And that was just the moment where I realized, okay, if I'm now continuing the entire session, I would just be absolutely crushed, which would have been all right because it would have been the last session of the entire mesocycle, but at the same time, I don't want to be just like a total mess, right? Yeah, I mean, the week number 5 was already an additional week, so I don't know. Now that I'm saying it out loud,
you're gonna go to the gym tomorrow.
I'm just thinking like it sounds like an easy way out or a cope out mechanism by me, but I just did what my body was telling me. As weird as it may sound, don't know. And I like to think that I got very good over the past like 2 years now to listen to my body, and especially when it comes to those recovery days and inter-session performance and all that kind of stuff. Sure, probably I have still plenty to learn, but I think that just like the way of evolvement has been very good, and because of that, I was just like, yeah, I'm listening to my body in a situation like this, and this is not even a debate then anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, this is what you're telling me. I'd rather listen to you because I already had like overreaching symptoms in my shoulder during this week, which weren't present in week 4, and things like these, right? Were just like telling me, okay, this is I'm getting really, really close to the limit here now.
How's your sleep been this week?
It was, I think, good because I overslept today.
Oh.
Yeah, I overslept, so I didn't hear the alarm when it set off. So, yeah, I was a little bit delayed with the entire thing today.
I was going to say my sleep has been shocking, and that tends to be, I think it's a combination of things.
Shocking in the sense of bad, or shocking in the sense of really deep and good?
Shockingly bad. So like, not like restless. I find myself just like having nightmares and just like thinking things, and like my mind can't switch off, which I think is a fairly common symptom for me, at least when I'm overreaching. And I've just been hot as hell. Like it's just been hot.
Me too. It's all, I mean, our apartment just heats up so badly. It's, I mean, we have all the fans on, with windows wide open in the middle of the night as well. And I'm lying there without anything, without any blankets and stuff. And I'm still sweating. I can't even fathom how it must be for someone like Mike or so, or an IFBB pro who weighs like Big Ramy. Holy shit, holy shit. He needs to live in an area or in a country where they have aircon. Otherwise, it's impossible. Like, he probably can't live in Europe. He couldn't. He would just die.
And some of the drugs they take at certain points, especially when they're trying to lose fat, like it just creates thermogenesis. So it's just tons of heat, and that must be so uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I have no idea about their drug protocol, but I don't think that they would use something like DNP.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, they would probably use DNP, but in many cases they wouldn't unless they are really far behind. But yeah, something like Tren, for example, heats up the body quite significantly as well. So, and this is something that is probably widely used by those IFBB pros. I would assume that. I have really no idea about their cycles. There's something for Broderick.
Yeah. So apart from, how's any other symptoms? Appetite okay, or has that gone down?
No, it's
you're only maintaining anyway, aren't you?
Yeah. So nothing severe though. Nothing that I'm craving. Sure, some days a little bit hungrier. Some days where you're just like having to force feed yourself. But yeah, nothing crazy. I mean, thus there's not that much to talk about. Just the usual, what I was talking about the previous weeks. Things are going very well. And yeah, now that the day I needed to cut that training day short, it's not really any big of concern because I pushed for 5 weeks. So I'm really, really happy overall with the entire mesocycle. And yeah, what about yourself, mate?
What, just out of interest, what comes next for you? What have you got a
metabolite block?
Oh, okay. Same as me. We're gonna be matching. Yeah, we've got.
Oh, God, it's like we said like last time when females are together for too long. The myth, I don't know if that's really the case. The myth of cycles, when females are same here.
And then you're maintaining and then cutting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we are literally. This is going to be great. We're right in line.
No, that's the plan. So when the kid comes, sees the light of the earth. Of the world, then it's about maintaining, and then after that, once we have settled into getting used to the entire thing, it's about cutting, then maintaining for a while, and then the actual contest prep stuff.
Shit, we're so aligned. This is literally, I'm in the same position. If mine end up, I think it probably will end up similar to that. I just don't want to be ready too early. That's all I'm worried about. It's like, last time I was ready like a month or two early. So it's like, I don't want that because it's pointless.
Yeah, but I mean, you are now, what is it, 30 pounds above stage weight. And last time was only 10 pounds, right? So I don't think that this is any, or should be any of your concern. But the good thing is that you can actually split it up now into 2 cutting phases and put yourself in a really good spot. And I mean, then you can still manage your schedule, right? See how the first cutting phase is going, see how much weight you've lost, and then you can take it from there, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking after the first cutting phase and then the month of maintenance, then I could always do like a slightly higher period of training volume and a little bit of a surplus, and then just get into dieting and go from there. I had something on my mind and I got put off because my camera was behind yours, behind the sound, but it's back now. That's what I was going to say.
Getting really angry. Oh, just kidding.
So I just wanted to say, because we just spoke about maintenance phases, primer phases, we're going to have a perfect opportunity to like give another sales pitch to the primer phase in a period of time. But I just wanted to say thank you to all the people who have bought that so far, because we've been blown away by the response. I think you said we've sold over 150 now, so insane. And the feedback's been great. But if you've got any more feedback, please do comment below. If there's anything you kind of want to be critical about or you really enjoyed, let us know. That'd be really cool.
No, absolutely. And just to add on that one, for those who have purchased the book, your download link will always be accessible for you. So if we are doing, and we are planning on doing updates regularly, so we are right now in the midst of just checking it another time because we've already discovered some small mistakes here and there. We are updating those, right, but also adding bits and pieces here and there if there's new information or new things that are important to talk about. You will always receive those updates.
Cool. Yeah, no, there was no big errors. I only saw there was like an E missing on one word. That's about all I've seen. Normally people would message you, so
and then I also saw something where there was the 5 at the other word, so there wasn't any kind of space between. So minor things like these. Right. Yeah.
Cool. My week very similar to yours, apart from my sleep. Like I said, my sleep's been shit. My appetite has been really low as well. But I think this is very common, at least when I'm like, I think I weighed my all-time heaviest this morning, actually, just over 198 pounds. Oh. So yeah, getting heavy. And I wasn't sure when I said I think I'll probably end up hitting 200 pounds this next mass. I wasn't like completely convinced it would end up going there because I thought my body would really push back. But it hasn't actually. It's actually still crept up. 4,000 calories has been seeing me through. So by the end of another whole month or so of massing, I expect if I'm at 198 pounds now, I'm going to hit 200. Like, I can't see that not happening, which is a pretty big, like, for me, that's a big, like, marker. I'd never gone over 190 pounds before. And now in this off season, I'm going to have hit 200, which is pretty scary in some ways. But I actually I don't know. I just going with the flow. Things are going well. Yeah. So something I'm definitely going to adjust for my next mesocycle, though, I've already mentioned this before, is making sure I've got a couple of exercises for some of my lower body movements. So squats this week, how many have I done? I've done 11 sets of squats this week. And I've got 6, I think, sets of leg press tomorrow.
Crazy.
It's going to crush me. The 20
at the moment, I think I'm sitting at around like 14 to 15 sets or so in regards to my quad volume.
I typically get up to near to 20 for quads. Hamstrings is nearer to 15. Like straight leg deadlifts. How many have I had this week? Like 7, 8 sets of straight leg deadlifts. Then I did like 6 sets of leg curls. But something like a machine, I find, like, especially in the 20 to 30 rep range, a machine, you can do like, I don't know, you can do 8 sets of that and it's easy enough to get them out, whereas squats, so the lower back just ends up getting really fatigued. Those are some very challenging sessions, but yeah, I'm excited to just keep moving forward with it. Nothing else interesting on my end, particularly at the end of next week. So actually a week tomorrow, be traveling to Ghent in Belgium for the weekend, which should be nice. It's going to be really short. We're back on Sunday, so nothing kind of crazy going on there. But Eurostar lets us go there, and apparently Ghent's really pretty, so that'll be nice.
That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. Also that you're traveling by train.
Yeah, I way prefer traveling by train.
I always like that. I don't know what it is about trains, but I do like traveling with trains. But I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Germany, the Deutsche Bahn is kind of a monopoly, kind of. And it's extremely expensive traveling by train. It is the most expensive way of traveling, which is insane if you really think about it.
Just because it's like, I don't know, it doesn't cost them any more to have more people, but...
Yeah, I mean, even more expensive than flying. Just imagine that.
The Eurostar is not cheap. No. Charlotte was like, are we really going to do this? I was like, it's not that expensive. I can't think how much it costs, like £400 for us both to return, like there and back, which is not cheap. you could fly somewhere for a lot less.
Yeah, but it's a cool experience, right? Yeah. If you're doing it, I mean, there are like amazing train roads in China, for example, and stuff like that, which would be amazing to do at some point, where you are just traveling up, what is it, 4,000 miles or so across the land, which would be amazing. Through the jungle, through mountains, you're sleeping there. That would be an amazing trip, in my opinion.
Something I want to get better at especially when I'm not competing, and I really regret saying this now because it should have happened this year, is like planning getaways during deload periods, because a lot of the listeners will be like me, and like yourself, Pascal. You don't really want to go on holiday in the middle of a mesocycle. It's kind of like, meh. But you have deloads every like couple of months. So perfect time, just plan ahead. And I'm terrible at that as well. Everything, like I end up filling it with like podcasts and work normally, but it'll be nice now and then to put in a little getaway somewhere, even if it's just small.
Especially when when we are living in a society nowadays where it's just possible to do a weekend trip.
Yeah.
I did it so often when I was still single, earned my first money. I was traveling like once per month to a different country, flying there, getting there on a Friday evening or even Saturday morning, stayed there until Sunday night.
That's really cool.
And coming back, right? And for a single person, if you both are traveling together, it is always then you need to adjust to the tempo and of the other person, which can be a little bit challenging. So I'm a really fast walker, and I don't need a lot of time to actually look around. This is also something that, where was it? I don't know. Just recently I was walking around with Katie. No, scrolling through Instagram, and I was just scrolling through, and she was just like saying, how are you able to just look at the pictures? And I don't know, maybe it had something to do with my past, what I was doing with retouching, that I had to go through a lot of pictures in one go and just immediately spot the good ones. I don't know, but that was just something like, also when I was traveling, I just don't need a lot of time at one place to make it stick in my head and keep it there. I think
I'm the same, but I would probably say it's my short attention span. Whereas Charlotte will like, shit, if we go to like a museum, she'll read everything, and I'm just like, okay, can't you just read the things that look like enticing? And I just want to walk through the thing.
Shit, yeah, that's true. No, but yeah, I mean, also when you're together, I think that two days can be sufficient time in a city to at least get an idea of what the city is about, the flair, the atmosphere. Of course, you will probably not really get to know the city, but enough to just get an idea of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't the plan for us to go to what was it again? The pizza. Oh, come on. Hey, why am I missing the word
Naples.
Now? Yeah, Naples. At some point.
Did we say that?
Yeah, just to get there, to get a pizza, grab a pizza, and then fly back home again.
Imagine that.
Like the most expensive pizza there is.
Yeah, it would be. At least the pizza in Naples are like €5.
Yeah.
Like, no joke. They're so cheap. Yeah. Just take 5 and like put them in the freezer. It's all good.
Yeah, take them with you on the plane.
Yeah, is there anything else of note, exciting? I guess we should probably plug it a little bit again, is the online coaching seminar that we have with the guys at JPS. Shout out to Jacob and Lyndon, which is going to be the 14th of July. So we're actually really close to that. Yeah. So you'll probably see podcasts coming out with myself, with Lyndon. Pascal will also, I think you're going to be interviewed by Jacob at some point. Should be interviewed possibly by Jacob at some point.
I don't know. He never reached out to me and told me.
So I'm sure that'll happen. Jacob's very off. Like, he's very, he'll do it today and then it'll be out today. So very much like that. So you'll see that all publicized, but it'd be great to see faces there. Bath is, again, a beautiful city. And the really cool thing is, not only will you get the seminar, you'll get to hear us all present about the entire contest prep, you get the ebook, and you'll get access to the physique course by JPS. It's like Brian Miner presenting on there. You get guys from 3DMJ presenting. Like, it's a bargain, to be honest, actually. When you think about
so when you really count everything together, you would probably make some money out of that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll certainly save it. Like, it's
a hell
of a bargain.
Yeah.
to get the ebook and the whole seminar day at we're giving away the ebook and the physique course for free, basically, with the ticket. So the tickets will be in the description box below, and it'll be just amazing to see friendly faces there. And if you are in the UK, it's easy to get to Bath from Bristol. If you're coming from Europe, you can get to Bristol and come over on the train. It's not scary, don't worry. If you need any, just have a look at it.
We kind of plugged it already alongside with that as well, when we've talked about how nicely it is to travel on train.
Oh, we did, yeah. It's so nice to travel on train,
because
guys.
I have to get to London, so that I can pick up Steve or meet with Steve, and then we are going by train to Bath. And then on the way back, I'm flying from Bristol. We still have to book a hotel and
we
Bath.
do. And actually, there you go. If people want an exclusive train ride with me and Pascal on the Saturday, they can come join us, and we'll have a train ride with you.
And if you want to have an exclusive night with one of us, you can book our hotel room and let us know as well.
That'd actually be really friendly.
That would be really friendly, yes. I'm just wondering what we would have to pay with then.
Oh, yeah, and just our bodies. I mean, just being present.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe a little bit of cuddling. I don't know.
Back tickling. Bit of a massage.
Yeah.
What's it called? Therapeutic touch. Recovery.
No, compassionate touch.
Compassionate, that's the one.
Mm.
Right.
Therapeutic touching.
Therapeutic. Therapy session with me and Pascal.
Yeah.
I'll rub your head. Pascal will talk to you in German.
Yeah. And maybe in the middle of the night, I will put my penis in your face. Just like that.
Teabag.
Yeah, a little bit. We are at least, I mean, of course, we are in the UK, so it is appropriate to serve tea then, in my opinion. So
that's so weird.
Questions. So Griffin Young, tips for staying positive during a long, stubborn injury recovery. Steve, I know you're no stranger to recovery and lateral epicondylitis. Epicondylitis, that's the word, doesn't even come close, but I was wondering how you kept a good mindset through all of it. So Steve, how do you keep a good mindset through recovering from an injury? A stomach injury.
A what injury?
A stubborn.
Oh, stubborn, right. So, to be fair to me, or rather the question asker, it's been a long time since I've had a long injury. This was, when was it I got that? It was over 7 years ago now that I had the head injury from the car, and I wasn't really I didn't have the mindset I have today. I didn't deal with it very well. I did things that were probably inappropriate. I probably have set myself up with some kind of strong mindsets that I kind of have that I've followed through since that time. But looking back at myself and what are the things that kept me from going downhill were probably habits, and focusing on what elements in my life I could control and not focusing too much on what I couldn't, and focus on the positives each day and progressing each day, even though if I wasn't where I wanted to be, it would be in the long run, things would be getting better, and focusing on those aspects. That's why I really give bodybuilding a lot of credit to for making me kind of come into a better place, is because I really had a lack of control in my life over my health and well-being. And by taking control of what food I put in my mouth and kind of the exercise I was doing, I could start being in a more productive way. And the really cool thing with bodybuilding, at least, is that you don't have anything that you don't have any certain exercises you absolutely must do. Of course, you need to stimulate the muscle groups. You have to do something, but you don't have any particular exercises you absolutely must do. So there's always things you can work around. Even if you can't train a particular area, you can still be productive with other muscle groups. So it's really nice in that way. There's always something that you can be working progressively to. And I always like the quote, progress is happiness. And that's something that I definitely live by. Even with the business, when we're progressing and things are going in the right direction, it's a happy business. With relationships, if it's progressing in the right kind of direction, it's happy. Again, with yourself, if you're progressing within the gym, you're progressing with your physique, it's going to promote happiness. And just going through habits and being consistent and focusing on the positives and not getting run down on yourself with all the negatives, it can really help you just move forward. And that's the way I would say to go about things. I say I didn't deal with it the best because, yeah, I'm not going to lie, there were periods of time I was very depressed. There's periods of time I was really not happy. And I think something that would have helped me with that, and I didn't realize it until much, much later, is relationships, being social with other people and realizing there's more to life than just you and your injury and what you're going through with the gym. Like if I had more friends, more family, and I was actually speaking to them and being productive in other areas of my life, I think I would have been a much happier person at that period of time. And it took me many years to overcome that. And realizing now in hindsight, like normally these things are more so temporary. It might not be temporary. It might be years that you have to recover from it. But in like 10 years time, you may well look back and be like, heck, I don't even remember what it feels like to be that way. And you can be very happy in yourself that you're going to get to a better place. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but those are some of the things that came to mind.
I really like that. No, absolutely. And I mean, we've talked about it like ages ago. Does bodybuilding make you lonely? I think was the title of the podcast, or the Improvement Season podcast episode. And that is something that we've touched on there as well, right? You don't want to have only bodybuilding in your life, because otherwise, what if something like a severe injury happens, or something other that keeps you away from then doing something like bodybuilding? If you have nothing else in your life and it's being taken away from you, holy shit, that's disastrous then. Because then you feel purposeless. You don't have anything in life anymore, right? And that could have even further devastating outcomes then.
And what I would say, just to touch on that, I've improved over the past year with this, is because I'm still in that state where if bodybuilding was taken away from me, that's a huge chunk of my life taken away. But you don't need to do a lot to keep other things in your life. So it might just be like, I've got a couple of close friends who I see like once or twice a month. And that's enough for us to reconnect, to go for a coffee, to spend the day together. And I really enjoy that. They really enjoy it. I hope they can still do it. We just go see a film or something. We just have a chat. And like same with family, I might see my family every 2 months or something, and I just talk to them and we kind of connect. It doesn't take a lot to keep the connections there, but it's very easy to let them all go. I've had to try, not with family, because my family is very good at connecting and we live quite close, but with my friends, I've had to try and really put myself out there to keep those kind of relationships going. But I'm so glad I have, because I feel much better for it. And whenever I do those like days with my friend, I just feel much more refreshed coming out of it. So I definitely would recommend it's easy to keep it going. Just don't get complacent with it, because it's easy to let it go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's move on to the next question.
Can I ask it? I have one from Ryan Beaver.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So Ryan is a Patreon supporter. So as always, we can plug the Patreon. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can email one of us, get in contact, or put it through Patreon, and we will get your question asked. And you get ahead of the crowd, because we are way behind. So Ryan has asked, hello to the hottest two dudes this side of Mississippi. He said in brackets, I realize that probably makes no sense if you don't live in the Midwest USA, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Yeah, it makes no sense to us. So bad.
Yeah, I know Mississippi, but other than that, no idea what it is about.
So his question is, I think we all understand DOMs, but mentioned in a recent podcast, you discussed cementing periods or primer phases, and someone else mentioned, well, if you go into a bulking phase or new training block, you're still getting the benefit of the previous training over time, and growth seems to be more over time than just a particular cycle. So that's like delayed muscle growth. Can we coin a term here? DOMG, delayed onset muscle growth. And is this currently a research topic that someone may be looking into? How much of this is taken into account in the primer phase?
Wow, okay, I have no idea whether someone is looking into that. I mean, isn't there like over 1,000 studies coming out or being published per day in the field of exercise science? So I have no idea whether someone is actually
probably
looking into
if there's
that.
Thousands.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Could be.
I don't know where it has become. It was more. I can't remember what study it came out of, but it has become a thing where this idea of potentially there's some adaptations that are occurring at a later date, and I kind of refer to it in the Primer Phase ebook plug as like a train braking, and it slows down rather than coming to a sudden stop. Kind of like muscle growth. You kind of do your macro cycle of muscle growth, Then you go for a primer phase, and those adaptations are still kind of occurring within that phase potentially, and that kind of helps cement that muscle. But like we kind of spoke about in the book, it's something that's kind of coming out to fruition. We don't necessarily know about it yet, but it kind of makes sense to me in some ways if I compare it to like fat loss. This kind of delayed fat loss potentially sometimes, or it's at least seen at a later date, it's revealed later. But fat loss occurs on a much quicker timescale. So I could imagine that muscle growth occurring much slower over a longer timescale could have longer delayed effects than maybe we see with fat loss. Kind of like the stress response adaptation curve, that stress takes longer to remove and longer to adapt. But yeah, I'm just theorizing.
Yeah, and this is something I just wanted to bring up as well, stress adaptations. And that is what muscle growth is, right? It's a stress-induced adaptation. And if you are adapting, if you're changing, and you're undergoing physiological changes due to a stressor, it's not happening overnight. And even if you are inducing that stress, it's also not just happening acutely, but also especially like with secondary changes after that. So to me, it just makes sense that something will take longer and probably, I don't know if delayed onset muscle growth is the right term for it, because then it would imply that it comes right or a long time after the induced stressor, whereas something like DOMS is just a kind of a waste product that happens like later on. You're not leaving the session and DOMS are already happening, right? Most of the time it's first occurring like the next day, or sometimes even first 2 days after the induced stressor. When it comes to muscle growth though, the processes are already starting right after the training session, and they are just lasting longer. And when it comes to myofibrillar protein synthesis, there has been even like the theories of it being much, much longer than first expected or assumed. So I think that it's a matter of days before anything is changing in that regard. But the adaptation probably takes days to occur and then comes to a halt after.
Yeah, I think this is something Broderick's spoken about in terms of like muscle machinery. He talks about like factory workers, like getting into, like you think about it like a factory, it doesn't suddenly get into action. It's like, it kind of, the factory workers wake up, they kind of get some food, the conveyor belt starts going, and it's like, it takes a while for it to get up and moving, and then it takes a while for it to come down and slow down in some ways. So this is why like mini bulks, mini masses aren't a thing, because it's like there's not enough time for that stress response and adaptation to really have occurred. So yeah, it's an interesting area for sure.
So to the next one then, to Winnie Russo. So coenzyme Q10 and L-Carnitine had been shown to work synergistically together in aiding in fat reduction. If the coenzyme Q10 helps release the fat to be used for energy, and L-Carnitine makes use for fat for energy by transporting it to cells, to the cell's mitochondria, does adding in exogenous fat supplements, i.e. fish oils or CLA, diminish the effects?
So the reason I'm laughing,
I'm just waiting for you,
because I have very little to say on like fat loss supplements in general. I have heard L-Carnitine being kind of talked about, and from what I know, isn't a huge, well, no fat loss supplement is going to be a huge deal. Coenzyme is super expensive. That's been thrown around and around for ages. I think it does have some benefits, but like marginal beyond kind of having a well-rounded diet and doing the right things in terms of like being in a calorie deficit. In terms of his actual question, if I don't know the supplements well enough to know if that's why they work synergistically and what's going on, but if you're it's no different. Like a fish oil is just fat, so if you're just consuming peanut butter, it's no different. So if you're consuming 50 grams of fat and fish oil is 3 grams of that versus peanut butter, it's not making any difference to what's happening with the coenzyme and what's going on with the L-Carnitine. So I wouldn't worry about that. Whether or not L-Carnitine and coenzyme and taking them together is going to aid your fat loss, I couldn't tell you. It's certainly not something I'm currently prescribing or giving clients.
So first and foremost, it's the same such as you. I don't know enough about coenzyme Q10 and L-Carnitine to actually give my opinions on the matter of them working synergistically to aid in fat loss. Have no idea about that, to be honest. What I can say, it's the same as you when it comes to fat burning supplements. There are only one or two ways to effectively do that. There's either via a caloric deficit or things that are not legally over the counter available. We brought it up. DNP is very effective, but you can also very quickly die from it. Because it is working on the mitochondria itself and not just like adding in some fat energy into the mitochondria, but it is working on the mitochondria level. But other than that, the question about then diminishing the effects, I could see that possibly happening. However, I don't know the magnitude of coenzyme Q10 and L-Carnitine, how synergistically they work together, the magnitude of that, how significant it was in the studies that have been showing that, don't know. But if you are consuming fats, and that is on top of your usual fat intake, it's the same when it comes to fat oxidation, right? So people always claim that keto is so much better because the fat oxidation is higher. Yes, no shit, because you're consuming more fat at the same time as well, and thus the fat oxidation is higher. And maybe if you're then adding in fat supplements and coenzyme Q10 and L-Carnitine helps the fat storages to be released for energy in the mitochondria, maybe it could diminish the effects than if you're adding in a little bit more of fat. If that's really the case, I don't know. Once again, just assumptions, but I just wanted to give that perspective on the matter as well.
It's kind of like the fasted cardio. You're burning more fat, but in the end of the day, it's not really going to be having any different effect to whether you did it fed. It's just calories. And this is why neither of us look into it's really great. Menno posted today a new study that was put out kind of talking about supplements and looking at like the level of athlete and how many supplements they take. And it was basically like high level athletes take barely anything, lower level athletes take loads. And I guess this is probably people who don't see results as quickly are like, I'm going to try everything. And whereas the guys that see results and they kind of have a better understanding or something as well, they take less. Obviously it's correlation causation, but there's the reason me and Pascal don't know much about these supplements, because we don't spend a lot of time focusing on those elements. We focus on more on the bottom end of the pyramid. Sure, I'm not going to say that there's no percentages that can be made up there, but I don't think it's much time needs to be spent thinking about those.
I'm very skeptical about those supplements in general. And I think that everyone should be, because I think Eric Helms once talked about that. I think even on our podcast, I don't know, what was it? Or maybe somewhere else, that there is absolutely not enough research being done or conducted on many supplements, especially the ones that aren't really that popular or known. Like creatine and beta-alanine are more exceptions of that. They have a lot of studies behind them, but there are, I think he brought up the example about that one testosterone booster who then had like this one study coming out. It was only one study that showed positive effects. And then afterwards, more and more studies came out that actually showed possible negative outcomes. And this is how you should always look at supplements. If they haven't been studied like extensively, I would always be super skeptical, and even up to the point where I'm cautious about even taking them, because you never know whether they are actually harmful or not.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, the supplement industry is not regulated, full stop. Like, that's the scary fact. So, be careful.
So, Isaac, what is your approach to get a client who's unwilling to gain fat to accept that it is an inherent part of improving?
I tell them, fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off, mate. Fuck off, mate. You have to.
Yeah. Everyone believes that you are someone who does say that.
Yeah, just fuck off. Can't work with you. Can't deal with people who can't gain fat.
That's how Revive Stronger works.
Imagine. I'm put off again because I'm being slow. Come on, get in line.
It's the entire time like that. So
God damn it. So what was I going to say? So this is something we've obviously spoken tons about and probably don't need to belabor the point too much, like adipose phobia. I did a whole presentation on it. In fact, I was thinking whether or not we'd maybe, we probably don't want to. I was thinking we could make it live on the YouTube channel if we wanted to, because we don't sell it, or it's just hidden. And I think it's just for our clients who have the seminar that I presented, adipose phobia, like 2-3 years ago or something.
Just maybe there will be a platform at some point.
It's also true.
Accessible.
Also true. So that's basically fat phobia. And it's just explaining to the person, and what I talk about within that presentation, and I even did an article on it. It's just kind of, there's a few things I do kind of when you're in your off season, focusing on performance over physique. That's a great one. Focusing on how good you feel within the gym, flexibility within your diet. I'm on 4,000 calories. Going out to eat isn't a freaking problem. Whereas when you're dieting, when you're on fewer amounts of food, it can be a problem. You're also setting yourself up just for success and for growth in future. You think, do you want to be looking the same year on year, or do you want to make sure that you're definitely changing and making progress? Well, then you need to be in a surplus. Just kind of really relaying all of the pros, and then looking at the kind of cons and being like, well, fat gain. Okay, realistically, how easy is fat gain to fat to lose? Well, within a month, you could lose like 5%. If you really wanted to push a diet, you could lose 5% of fat. Like, that's a hell of a lot, or 5% of your body weight rather, which could be 5% total fat. Like, you could get down from 15% close to 10% within a couple of months. Easy. So when you're thinking about it, you're only in a small surplus. You're only doing it for a short period of time. And then you can always give examples. You can show them me, like where I went from the start of the season to the end of this off season. It's kind of like, you're never going to get fat. You don't get fat overnight. It's a slow process. So remember that. We're not in a 1,000 calorie surplus. We're in like a 300, 400 calorie surplus, there or thereabouts. So you're not going to be gaining at an excessive rate. You're not going to suddenly become fat. And if you get uncomfortable at certain points, you can kind of think about things. Do you want to maintain for a period of time? Do you want to go for a small cutting phase? But yeah, it's really just emphasizing, kind of really being very objective about it. Do you want to kind of look the same year on year, month on month, or do you really want to make sure that you're gaining the muscle you should be, performing the best you can be? Focus on all the pros and don't focus so much on the cons. And I just always bring out the analogy of like, muscle gain is like cycling uphill, whereas fat loss is like cycling downhill. The process of muscle gain is so much harder on the body. Don't make it any harder on yourself by putting yourself at maintenance, or putting yourself in a position that just makes it excessively hard by adding loads of cardio or anything like that. And when it comes time for fat loss, it's going to come straight off you because you're in such a good position for it to come off, and it's just an easier process.
Very well put. Don't want to add anything more because I would just destroy that, how good it was. So, Dominik Gwiazda.
Brilliantly pronounced, yeah. I think.
No idea how that was pronounced. I would assume that he is probably from Poland or so. So what do you think about doing core on the beginning of training? So core exercises, working the abs, probably even erectors when we're talking about the core.
Glutes. Glutes and your erectors. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm being...
yeah, but what do you think about that?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't recommend it generally. For lower body particularly, because core kind of bracing and to have a fresh and not fatigued core is quite important when we're doing big compound lifts, and you want to make sure you're like utilizing the Valsalva maneuver. You're making sure to keep your lower back stable. You're keeping your kind of core tight. You're maybe using a belt to help with that as well, and kind of to make the most out of your movements and help force transfer and not have lower back rounding. Probably good idea to have a fresh and not trained abdominal section, whereas for upper body, probably not such an issue. You could probably do it and get out of the way and then go through your upper body lifts. The core isn't so much involved with bench pressing, maybe barbell bent over rows a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's going to really impact that. So that's probably the general rule of thumb I would have for upper body. I wouldn't be worried about it. Lower body, I probably would do it afterwards.
Yeah, I would just be cautious about the bigger compound lifts, that it may impact them, especially when you're pre-fatiguing that midsection. You don't want to compromise yourself in that position, right? Especially because the midsection has plays such an important part in the entire stabilization of that midsection. the midsection plays an important part of the stabilization of the midsection. The core musculature plays an important part, because otherwise you only have the lower part of your spine at that area, and that is quite fragile. That's why you don't want to put yourself in a possibly compromised position and pre-fatigue those muscles who are stabilizer muscles. So yeah, just be cautious about that. I mean, if you're doing a lot of single joint exercises, lots of machine work, I don't think that it's really a big issue. But if you're doing a lot of compound lifts, save it for last or so. So, it's Dominic once again, Mr. Givjatsta. What do you think about cutting more than 4 months?
So I don't know why I'm not used to you ask the question and then it's always me how to ask them first. I'm like, Pascal's going to take one of these first, isn't he? It's because we're both overreached. We're both like, fuck this.
Yeah, he's going to take it now.
So cutting for over 4 months. What do I think about it? I don't know. That's a very open-ended question. Probably depends a lot on context. I think 4 months and dieting for over 4 months without any breaks is quite a long period of time. But that's assuming that you've been on point for that period of time. I've had clients who have been dieting for a long, long time because they're not on point and they are giving themselves diet breaks and refeeds quite frequently. And this is just part of being a human and part of having a life, and you're not as maybe you're not a competitor and you're not maybe as dedicated as not dedicated, but you're not as, it's not as high a priority for you. So if you've been dieting for 4 months, air quotes, and you're not feeling that diet fatigued, you're not feeling particularly run down, then go for it. I don't see why you can't diet for longer than that, assuming performance is good, assuming everything's going well. If you've been really pushing it, you've been on point with everything, I imagine diet fatigue factors, so hunger, energy levels, libido, performance within the gym, they're all going to be building up against you. So I imagine taking a primer phase plug is probably a good idea and a good investment for you before going about things again, because adaptive resistance is building up, the negative adaptations of dieting are building up, and training kind of together, whereby I think dieting for any longer than that, you probably end up risking muscle loss, and also risking potential unwanted binges and breaking of the diet. And also your efficiency of fat loss is probably slowing down. I imagine you'd have to start getting into silly lower numbers of calories or energy expenditure, whereby if you were to take a bit of a break, like the primer phase, build calories up, you could be more efficient again afterwards, kind of like a fueling up for another leg of the journey.
No, absolutely. And I mean, just to plug one more thing, and that is the London seminar footage we have. Once again, to bring James Hoffman's presentation up with the tiered athlete system. And I think it's everything in life is a trade-off, right? And when it's the same with cutting. Do you want to get as lean as possible in those 4 months, or do you just want to lose a little bit of weight but still enjoy certain things that are important to you in your life? If you are deciding to do the latter and go out 2 or 3 times per week with your loved ones or so, then you probably have to accept the trade-off that weight loss isn't as rapid as it could be, right? But this comes always at a conscious decision. At least it should always come at a conscious decision from your end, that you are making or are under the control of those decisions, that you're saying, okay, this is something that I'm more than willing to accept, and thus the weight loss is this fast. If this is not the case, though, if that's out of your control, or you are binging your face off the entire time without you wanting to, right? Then of course you have to recheck your priorities and also your entire approach, and whether something like 4 months of cutting is appropriate for you. Maybe something else is, maybe a longer period is even more appropriate, but taking it a little bit slower or something like that, right? So yeah, 4 months is 4 months of cutting. And I mean, nothing else, right? It really depends on the entire context and what you're willing to invest, what you're willing to trade in comparison to the things that you're getting out of the cutting phase, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think you actually, to bring up a point, I think you kind of made that there as well, is that a lot of the time people, and this might be coming from a perspective of maybe he's seen that it's recommended to not diet longer than 3 to 4 months or something like that, which I think is a fine general recommendation. But you have to remember these are general recommendations and it doesn't take into your personal context. So don't just follow, people will see, oh, Jim Wendler's 531, there's a deload every 4th week. That doesn't mean you have to deload every 4th week. Take into consideration why that deload's there, because the person is very fatigued, their performance is starting to come down or plateau. That's when you deload. So maybe that's in the 5th week for you. So always just like, there's some fudge factor.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because I do remember at the beginning of my lifting career, everyone was always referring to 12 weeks of cutting. I don't know why, but everyone was always talking about that. And I did a 12-week cut as well at some point, right? I don't know. It was just like the thing. And so, yeah, it could very well be that just in this environment that people are just like recommending that length without any context behind that. So, yeah.
And I think this is what like good coaching does. Like when we coach our clients, I think a lot of them have that ideology in mind. They're like, oh, I should be deloading now. And we're like, why? Like we can move this here. Like actually, how are you in your context, in your scenario doing? And that's why I like coaching, because you get to kind of teach someone about their own body and listening to it and how it's actually going. It's like, oh, I should be taking a deload and diet break now. It's like, why? Because it's the 5th week. It's like, but your training performance is going really well. You're adhering to the diet super well. Your hunger is great. Why don't we go for another week? We have no reason to take the deload and diet break or something along those lines.
I don't know if I talked about it in one of the previous episodes. Could very well be, and I could be repeating myself now, but it could also be that I just brought it up in some of my client check-ins, and that is I hate like only transformation pictures, because everyone can get anyone lean. That's why magazine diets, they do work. Because they are based on the fundamental principles of just the law of thermodynamics. The caloric deficit is just like super aggressive, right? And even my mom, who has no idea about nutrition, would then probably lose some weight along with that. So everyone can get anyone eat. It's just solely based on their will to adhere to the diet and stick to the diet. That's all that is, right? That's why I'm not the biggest fan of those transformation pictures, because it doesn't really tell you much about the true changes that are long lasting and that are really important, in my opinion, for actually sustaining that lost weight or maintaining now the new body composition, no matter how it is, what it is, right? And for me personally, the things that no one else is seeing, that are only probably for you as an individual, that then still carry over to those body composition changes, but that are really just noticeable for you or your close environment or so. These are the changes that are so important. And this is exactly what you brought up there with teaching them something about themselves, making them aware and conscious about certain things, certain changes, educating them why things are working the way they do, right? So that at some point they are like as if they are graduating from school or a university. I'm not saying that we are teaching to that extent or so, but just the school of their own body, right? So that now they are set up for life or for the next part of their life. And it's not just like, okay, I have that degree now, but I didn't go to school at all, right? What am I supposed to do with that degree? And then all of a sudden, you're back to square one, right? And this is what transformation pictures are most of the time for me. It's just like doesn't really tell much about what has changed for the client. And sometimes they are even ending up in a worse position, even though that visually they look better now.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate because the transformation pictures, I think, even when we put them up now and then, I think they help the business.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We try and do this and explain and like have a caption that explains the process a little bit. But you can never, like, the amount of time between the transformation picture, you're never going to be explain that. And I guess people say a picture says 1,000 words, and quite often, no, 1,000 words are missed.
Yeah, at least in that context, definitely. So yeah, moving on to the next question, which is from Daniel. I don't know if that's a that he mistyped his name, or whether this is true. Because have you ever heard of Daniel? So with an U instead of an R. So
the I is right next to the U on the keyboard.
So yeah, that's true. Yeah. So that's probably it. So when training for hypertrophy, is there any advantage to using breathing techniques such as Valsalva movement?
Absolutely. Should we just leave it at that? So like we basically covered it in the why not training your core beforehand, kind of talking about the Valsalva maneuver is you're filling your complete core with air, and so that it's now kind of you're creating your own, I don't know the physiology well enough to say what it's called, the TVA I think it is, and you're basically creating like a belt within yourself, so it's now the pressure's there, so you're less easy to crush. It's like filling up whatever it could be, like something you fill up a water bottle with water, and now you push against it and it's much harder to squeeze because like it's got pressure against it. Just like when you use a Valsalva maneuver, you filled your body with air. So now it's so much more solid. So when you go through a movement where there's potential compression, like an axial loaded movement, like a squat, now you're going to be able to generate so much more force. You're not just going to crush. You imagine like putting your hand on top of a bottle that's empty of water. You could probably crush it all the way down, assuming it's not filled with loads of air. But if it was filled with like water, you're not going to be able to, it's not going to be able to compress as well. So you can it can hold its force. So the force transfer, and just for safety reasons as well, you're going to be securing your lower spine.
Yeah. And I mean, when we just take that example of force output, which you brought up there, just imagine trying to do a leg press and slacking off on the upper body. Try to do that weight for a certain amount of repetitions, and now try to tense the entire body and do a second set. The second one will be so much more powerful, and even more so in other sports. It's more carried over if you then think about like pushing or so, like rugby or American football, right? When you are pressing or pushing yourself away from the floor and immediately crushing against an opponent, when you are trying to put force from the floor into the other person, you're not doing it by just slacking off the midsection. You want to engage all of the muscles there are, because then the force is delivered from the ground really up to the opponent. And the same principles apply to something like a squat, for example, right? When you are trying to bring force from the floor up to the body, to the shoulder blades where the bar is resting and sitting, you want to have the entire core or all the muscles engaged. This even applies to something like the upper back tightness as well, right? You want to have all the muscles engaged so that you are able to fire as many motor units as possible, and as many muscle fibers thus as possible in that scenario. So yes, definitely try to incorporate that as well.
I always think about like if you had your car stuck in the mud and you go to try and push it, I couldn't even imagine like in my brain trying to push it and not holding my breath, like then push. You imagine just trying to push it without doing that, you just be like limp and I'd just crumble.
I think the same principle applies also to something like karate or so. And when you want to actually punch someone, you're not just doing it with just the hand or the arm. You're actually doing it with the entire core, bracing the core and then generating force throughout your body to the hand. I could be totally wrong because I'm not a karate expert, but I think that's the way how it is. So Jordan Fleming, my man. So whilst we know hypertrophy comes from a range of stimuli, what's your favorite 3 exercises for hypertrophy and why? Any kind of hypertrophy, not any specific body part.
So is this basically our 3 favorite movements for...
Yeah.
Like just our 3 favorite movements?
Yeah, for hypertrophy.
For hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it could very well be that you are loving the snatch, for example. But
so I'm not going to take this as like the only 3 movements you can do full stop. These are just like, because if I was picking 3 movements I could only do, it'd be like deadlift would obviously be in there, but I don't think it's typically one of my favorite necessarily. Squat's got to be there for me. And I think I would just say a barbell squat. I just fucking love barbell squats. Maybe you can say one now, Pascal.
It always changes with time. That's for sure. It always changes with time. I would have, so especially when things are going very well, right? So probably if you have asked me like a year ago, I would have said squats definitely as well. Right now I'm not squatting. So so not barbell back squat. So right now my first movement would be chest supported T-bar rows. I don't know what it is. It's a killer machine and exercise for my back. It is. I've been doing it for ages now, and it's just like so I see it as a compound lift because it basically is, right? Do you know which machine I'm talking about? Yeah. And I've been talking with James Hoffman about it at the London seminar as well, and he was also like, yeah, that machine is just like brilliant. Basically, it's a bend over row, just like with chest supported, which is kind of taking away the pressure on your lower back as well a little bit, and allows you to really get that stretch on the upper body. I just love that one.
It is very good. It reminds me of T-bar rows. It's like basically a T-bar row on steroids. Like T-bar rows, in my opinion, like I've tried them a few times. I just find them shit. The range of motion is just always so.
Totally.
So whereas with this, like it removes any of that barrier of range of motion. You get the greatness of a T-bar row like that, the way it moves, but you don't get any of the implications of it being in the way.
So second one.
You know what? It's just come into my head because I've been really enjoying them a couple of mesocycles, and that's close grip, easy bar curls. Whatever it is about them, I love it. Like you just put them out in front of you, get a full stretch right on the biceps, and then come all the way up. It's just, for my biceps recently, I don't know. I feel like they've made my biceps grow even more. I don't know. I just feel super good on those. Funny enough that
you bring up a bicep exercise, because I've been thinking about a biceps exercise as well, and that is cable curls, actually. So on a tower, with it just like a straight bar or single arm. I don't know what it is. You can create a constant tension on the biceps. It's simply the best for my biceps. I mean, no matter how I'm doing them, it's just like stimulating them to a really massive extent, get a massive pump. I feel them the entire range of motion. That's my bicep exercise.
Okay.
So that's the one.
So I'm going to go with, what am I going to go with? I had one in my head and now it's gone. Fuck's sake. What have I been really enjoying? So I will say, just because this one's in my mind now, like a machine fly, not with cables, but a machine. So it's kind of like you can do reverse flies on them as well. It's just the amount of the stretch, the kind of control, because with cables, you can get a good stretch, but sometimes they're a bit more fiddly. Whereas with the machine, it's just locked in. Like you can just get a deep stretch on those, which is really nice, but also come all the way and pause them at the top. And just they blow my chest right up. I just find those really, really satisfying. And even when you're relatively fatigued, like you can just push those, like some movements you can really like grind with. Like a bent over barbell row, you can't fucking grind with that. Like a bent over row, like you're going to start swinging as soon as start trying to grind because you have nothing to support you or push against necessarily. But with this kind of machine fly, love those. They're very, very good.
Man. So I wanted to say possibly cable flies, cable flies, but in a way that you are a parallel with your upper body to the floor. So you're basically bending over so that the towers are actually then pointing downwards, right? So I never liked the machines where, I don't know, you have to step away. And the towers are behind you, and then you're doing the flies, right? You know what I mean? But more so where they are over for each other, so that you are standing in the middle, and then you have to pull the cables towards you.
They have to be further apart.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're bending over, and I saw that. Shout out each and every single episode. Shout out to my man Z. I saw him do that, and I was just like thinking, okay, I'm giving this a try now, and I did it, like bend over, and then because because of the angle of how the machine is then positioned, you can actually then get a really great range of motion where you can actually then cross your arms. And this crossing of the arms, right, because of the pec musculature, right, when you are then pressing and really pressing forward, for example, but also in that position when you're then crossing your arms, you can really squeeze the pecs, and it just gives me like pretty nasty titty pumps. And I do like that. I do like my titty pumps. So yeah, this would be one. I never actually said anything about the lower body, right?
No, you didn't. I said squats at least.
But I mean, yeah, if there is an
adductor
exercise,
and abductors, right?
Yes,
good
exactly.
girls and bad girls.
Yeah, with staring at just a random person in the room. It's the best.
And lean over them.
Yeah,
like this. The people that do this.
it's the best. I mean, yeah. No, but it would be back squats. I mean, I just can't do them at the moment because of something about my rib cage on the left side, which I have for a longer period of time now. Every single time I'm at the bottom of the squat, it flares up on the left side. I don't know what it is. I should probably get that checked out at some point, but haven't done so. That's why I'm not squatting at the moment. So,
just to delay this episode ending even further, what are your quad movements at the moment?
I tried that leg press, which is now slowly working quite nicely. So that normal leg press, 45-degree angle, or what it's called. Then a single leg hammer strength leg press where you're sitting upright. It just, I don't know what it is, but you can just get into a sick range of motion with a single leg press on such a machine. Like incredible range of motion, like Jan Frisse style range of motion, but simply just with one leg, unfortunately. Then leg extensions, and yeah, that's the three movements I'm doing at the moment.
I was thinking I haven't done a lunge in ages.
No, not that. And probably I have to do it in the metabolite block. Oh god!
And whenever I program clients lunges, they're like, "Steve, why?"
Yep.
I'm just like, "Yep, I just have big glutes, so I don't need the lunge."
Yeah, metabolite block is coming next, so yeah, I will probably prescribe myself walking lunges. God damn,
they're very good for metabolites. To be fair, I did them last time I did metabolite work.
What did you do again? Walking lunges supersetted with?
So I did it with. They're really good. They're like sandbags, but they're like they have handles, so I could put it on my back and hold it there.
Same with our gym.
Awesome. So yeah, you can do walking lunges and then go straight into squats with it on your back. Yeah, they're freaking great.
And what I'm always doing is I'm actually wearing my knee sleeves for that. Because so we have
them further.
Yeah, we have rubber mats in the gym, at least where we can do walking lunges. So it's not that bad. But with knee sleeves on, it just makes things so much more convenient because then you can be a little bit more aggressive and not just be like, holy shit, I need to slow it down. Because otherwise, after 2 sets, your knees are just like fucked after 20 to 40 steps. What are you doing, right? So 20 steps per leg maybe, but 40 steps in general, and then your knees are already fucked after like 1 set, and thus I'm doing it on the rubber mats with my sleeves on, and that helps tremendously. If someone is like, I can't do it because my knees, fuck you, it's just an excuse. I mean, seriously.
And if you have knee sleeves at home, knee sleeves.
see. What a hardcore motherfucker! I mean, that's why they want to Brexit actually, because everyone on the mainland, I just call it mainland now, is actually a pussy, and the Brits do.
Hardcore as fuck. With Vinnie Jones, who's like our mascot.
I have no idea who Vinnie Jones is, but I mean, you have bad weather all the time. I mean, that must be good for something, at least.
It makes us very grumpy and hardcore because we walk in the rain.
Yes.
Should we call it here?
Cool. Yeah, let's do this. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in. And I think we plugged here enough today with everything that we wrote out. So yeah, I just say thank you very much, Steve Hall.
Thank you, and auf Wiedersehen.
Mm-hmm.